Good morning, everybody, or afternoon if you're on the East Coast. We are here today with our mastermind, this for leadership gold with John Maxwell. TJ is here with me in Lynchburg in the office next door.
Awesome.
Scott Fogelman is in Richmond, and we have our fearless leader in Atlanta, David Patterson.
Yay. Good afternoon, everybody.
Oh, you got the memo to wear pink.
Yeah. Yes. Matter of fact, this is the first time I'm debuting this shirt on this mastermind call. It's the first time I've worn it. I actually, technically today, I am above you. Actually, I'm north of you.
Oh yeah, right that's now. Right. I forgot.
Yeah. I am in Dumfries, Virginia right now, and working with one of my newest clients up here, and we're working on scalable and sustainable models for their business. So we're really excited about that. And the last thing I put on the whiteboard before our break was leadership development. For all of these things to happen and for you to bring these people into play, you've got to be the leader that you need to be able to run these people. So everything rises and falls on leadership.
A good leader develops other leaders.
That is correct. And so that is one of the things that we're going to be talking about this afternoon after we get done with the mastermind today. So we're going to start with lesson 22. We are 2 sessions away from being done with the book. And I really felt so good about last week. It was really a very powerful session. And so I'm hoping that we'll continue the momentum on that and finish strong over the next 2 sessions. So let's go to lesson 22. For everything you gain, you give up something. And the very first sentence, usually with a lot of John's books, starts with a question. And this one starts with, what is the key to going to the next level as a leader? And over on page 204 in the book, it talks about what is the next level worth? And one of the things that jumped out at me when I was starting to read this book is actually another book called The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, and Law 18, which is the law of sacrifice, that we have to give up to go up. And so I was thinking about this morning, what are some of the things that we have to give up as individuals that are leading ourselves to achieve the goal that we want to achieve? And I wrote a little bit of a list, and I kind of want to ask you guys, what are some of the things that you have given up? And so for me, one of the things that I gave up was sleep today, because I did not get to bed until late last night. I had to wake up at 4 o'clock this morning to catch a 5:40 flight to Washington, Dulles. And so there's people in this world that like to sleep, and they probably would hear that description and say, there's absolutely no way that I could do that because I love my sleep way too much. And ironically, even though I've been up pretty much since 4 o'clock, I'm so energized by the clients that I have here today. And we've had such a great morning session that I really believe, and this could be the adrenaline talking, that this afternoon is going to be just as good. And probably by the time that this is over, I'm going to be ready to go somewhere and crash. So as long as I can make it through the next 4 hours, I'm going to be good to go. One of the other things that I feel like that I have sacrificed is money, and more so from the standpoint of investing money into my development in terms of helping to grow my business and giving myself an opportunity to live a life in the future that I want to live, and sacrificing some of the comforts and some of the immediate gratification that you can get that money can give you. And so those 2 things, combined with the fact of security and choosing a path where there are challenges and discomfort in my world, there's a lot of people that are not willing necessarily to sacrifice their security to move to the next level of where they want to go. And so as I was thinking about today, I really feel like those are the 3 major things that jumped out at me in terms of sacrifice. So I'm going to start with Scott. Scott, what do you believe are one or two things that you have sacrificed to move levels in your career?
Well, security and money is, anytime you take a risk, I struggle with a lot of times with sometimes making the next level because just the commitment of, the outlay and the risk of what you might lose. But
Mm-hmm.
multiple times I've found myself having to, risk and either, give up money or give up security. I give things. In many ways, I've kind of started all over just a year ago. So just kind of sold off everything and started fresh. And in some ways, obviously, it seems like it's taking a step backwards, but it's the ultimate goal is happiness, and so sometimes you got to take a step backwards to get to achieve bigger goals.
Mm-hmm. Scott, it's really interesting because John talks about that a lot in his career. He talks about how every move that he made in his career required him to take a step back, meaning either financially or a change of venue. That he has said it in so many words that is a true thing. So that should not be surprising, especially for those that want to level up. Sometimes we have to take a step back on a particular block that will propel us. I have a really good friend in Atlanta that knows that I love games, all different types of games, video games, board games, whatever the case may be. And actually, for a little bit of time, my Facebook cover page was Super Mario Brothers. And she was telling me about the vision that she had about how Mario would land on a block and that block would like launch or propel him up in the sky. So you would think that you would hit that block and you would actually go down a little bit because you have to jump from a height and land on that block and it might knock you down. But there are some blocks that actually will propel you to a whole new level. And so I think there's a lot of truth to the fact that there is a little bit of a step back to move forward. And it's interesting on page 204, there's a quote there by Max Dupree that basically says, by avoiding risk, we really risk what is most important in life, reaching towards growth, our potential, and a true contribution to a common goal. So I believe that there has to be some risk for us to get to that reward. And that's something that we hear all the time. It's harder for us to actually apply it because then we get into fears and limiting beliefs and all of those voices that are in our head. So, TJ, what about you? What is something that you feel like that you have sacrificed to get where you are right now?
I would definitely agree with Scott on the money, but my other one would be time. Like you got to put a lot of time and effort into, building anything sustainable that's going to last long term. And so you have to sacrifice doing some of the things you want to do and some of the things you'd rather be doing in order to build the sustainable, lasting, business that you want to build.
TJ, can you think of a time where, I guess maybe the question is, have you always been that way, or was there something that happened in your life? Can you think of a tipping point where you started to make that shift of, I really need to be more of an investor of a time versus a waster or a misappropriation of time?
I think the biggest shift, I've always been pretty decent with my time. Getting the things that I want done. But I think the biggest shift was when I took this job about 3 years ago. And, this is the first time I've ever taken anything that was fully commissioned, and realizing that, man, I've got to sink or swim here. And still being relatively new to the industry, I set out to be to make sure I swam and excelled at it. So that's one of the early things I realized was, managing time is essential, and putting in the time is important as well. Yeah. So the managing myself to stay on task and not get distracted, because there's so many different things that pop up throughout the day between emails and texts and phone calls. But staying on task is something that I'm really focusing on now, to grow myself and propel to that next level.
What is one of the action items that you've taken, TJ, to help you kind of stay on point with that?
It depends on the day. That's one of those things, you say, oh yeah, I'm going to do this. I'm going to, set this step. And, but one of the things I was watching yesterday as part of my coaching, mortgage coaching, was talking about, creating a schedule and sticking to it. And, I've heard that so many times, and I've done that many times, but the sticking to it's the hard part, where I get out, plan it all out and say, okay, this is what's going to happen. And then, that day, something pops up and throws me off schedule. And then I have a bad habit of not saying, okay, I screwed up yesterday. Let's go back to it today and try it again. And, I just kind of fling it out and then forget about it for a couple of weeks. And then it's like, I got to get back on that. Then I go back to it again. So it's the consistency is the hardest part for me. Just, I know what I need to be doing, what I should be doing, but actually being consistent and being almost stingy with my time is the hard thing. Cause I want to help everybody, and I want to be available and feel like I'm responding quickly, but really that's not the best use of my time, and not even giving them the best service, even though I feel like I'm giving them better service when I'm calling them back quickly. It'd be better if I had just, called them back, at the scheduled time.
It's interesting, TJ. What jumped in my head was to ask you, do you have trouble with saying no?
Yes, very much so. And that goes right along with, again, that coaching I was watching yesterday. They say no early and then come up with the solution and say, can you do this? No, but, this is what I can do. And that really stood out to me yesterday as I was watching that video as part of my coaching. And I think that goes right along with what you're saying, is being able to say no is a very key skill to have.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. I really do. Nanette, same question for you. What do you feel like is something that you have sacrificed to move towards the level where you are now?
Well, there's a lot of things. I remember growing up, my dad and my mom, I had certain chores I had to do every day in my homework before I could go play outside. People don't know what playing outside is like, but
right.
We played outside, and it was really great. I get to ride my bike, and so this is where the core came from. How I would reward myself. I do this, and then I am rewarded. Okay. And one thing that I like to do is I say to myself, I'm going to make my phone calls that I need to make, and then I get to go do this for 10 minutes, So I don't look at it like I'm giving anything up, I just think about what I'm going to get. So, because there's this, I have a thing that I'm going to put on my wall this morning. It says, when you think about quitting, remember why you started. So, I just turn it around to something that I can understand, because that motivates me to do it. And just don't worry about what I'm giving up. Remember what I'm getting.
Right. Yeah. It's interesting. Staying on page 204, John was talking about my father would often admonish me by saying, pay now, play later. And anything we get will exact a price for us. And so there's a big difference between looking at something as a cost versus looking at something as an investment. And so even though there are things that we do sacrifice, we do really believe that it's worth that trade-off for us to obtain what it is that we want to achieve, and feel like that we're
if these kind of things were easy, and if it was easy, everybody would do it.
Absolutely. It's a good segue to page 205 and the subsequent pages. It talks about what will you trade, and it talks about the 10 trade-offs worth making. And so what I kind of wanted to do is kind of go around the mastermind and have you guys talk about one of the trade-offs, one of the 10 trade-offs worth making. And I will start. And I would say that one of the things that I have had to work on tremendously would be number 4, which is trade immediate pleasure for personal growth. If ever there was something our culture has a difficult time with, it is delayed gratification. If you look at the statistics on how much people are in debt and how little they put into savings, you can see that people are always seeking immediate pleasure. And I believe that's not just related to financials in terms of what you have in your bank account. I also believe it has to do with what you have in your growth account. There's a saying that you will stay the same unless there's 2 things that are different, which is the people that are around you and the books that you read. And so I have spent a lot of time in the last 6 months reading to develop myself as a person, to develop myself as a leader, and to develop my relationships with people around me and really understanding who I am. And that's not a fun process. And that time could be used with going to a baseball game or going out and just having fun with my friends or just doing things that are more pleasurable than making that investment in my development. And so I really find that to be something where a lot of people really do not understand the importance of sacrificing a pleasurable event for 90 minutes to 2 hours of developing themselves and or working towards to whatever the goal is that they have or the dream that they have in the future. And so I think it's really important for us to be cognizant of how we spend our time and what we spend our time on. So, Scott, which one of these 10 trade-offs jumped out to you?
Myself there, I finally got it done. I really thought number 6 was good. Trade quantity of life for quality of life, and I think just being present where you are and making the most of what you're doing at that time, and really makes a huge difference. So if you're at work, you really need to focus on your work. And if you're doing something with your family or you're at home, then you need to really focus on that and make sure you have good quality time, with whatever you're doing. And also like purposely schedule, make it a part of your mission to schedule vacations and time away and to do the things you want to do, as opposed to just, going aimlessly and maybe coming across something and that's kind of fun, but just find out what's important to you and make it an event, make it fun, make it a special.
Yeah. First question to that: what do you think is the challenging part for people? So, like, I have a coaching client I met with on yesterday. She hasn't taken a vacation in 2 years and didn't even realize it had been 2 years until her girlfriends that she's going on a trip with had to remind her of that. What is it about our culture or how we operate that keeps us from putting more of that time in our calendars?
I guess that's a good question. I don't know. I think maybe we just have a tendency to not really appreciate some of the things that we already have. And, we're so worried about getting the next new thing. We don't appreciate what we have already in our lives and in our possessions. Me, I guess speaking to myself, sometimes I'll have scheduled time away, but I won't schedule to do anything. So, a couple of days will go by and I realize, well, I didn't really, do anything really fun or really, enjoyable. And that's what I mean is that I need to make sure the quality of your life, schedule time with the people you want to see and do the things you want to do, while you can.
Yeah. Do you find it challenging to be present when you're with people?
Yeah, at times I do, especially, the longer the longer I'm away or doing things, you know, other than work or the other stuff, I seem to be more and more distracted. And especially if I make a mental note and say, okay, I'm taking the day off and I'm not working today, it's a lot easier than if I don't make that mental note. You know, every time the phone rings, every time something happens, I got to go check messages and do everything and do that type of thing instead of, you know, just being in the moment.
Yeah. Are there other actions that you take intentionally other than making a note when you making that mental note when you're taking that day off?
Yeah. Well, also, one thing I've been trying to be more cognizant of is that, you know, just keep my phone put away. So, you know, I guess I grew up in the era when every time the phone rang, you had to answer it. And I'm starting. No, I don't have to answer the phone every time it rings. Every time I hear a text message, I got to answer. I'm like, no, I really don't. You know, if I'm in the middle of doing something, I need to, you know, finish what I'm doing, and be where I am. You know, not pick up the phone in the middle of a meeting and read your text messages or something that doesn't have to be dealt with at that time.
Yeah, absolutely. TJ, what about you? What's one of the trade-offs of the 10 that jumped out at you?
I actually really agree with kind of what Scott was saying about, you know, what you just got done saying about, you know, the emails and texts and phone calls. You know, we feel like just because somebody's texting us or calling us, we've got to answer it. We got to hop on it right then and there. And the emails, it's so easy to just check on them. And you're like, and it really gets you so you're jumping around to so many different things that you're not completing any of your tasks.
Yeah.
That's something I set myself, I'm like, okay, I'm going to finish this task, but then, you know, phone rings and it's, you know, somebody that sends me a lot of business. So I'm like, okay, I got to grab this. So then I talk to them and, you know, they've got something they need me to do. So I switch off and go do this other task. And then, you know, when I'm in the middle of that, I get a text from somebody else and, you know, emails for something that's supposed to be closing. And, you know, pretty soon you've started 15 different things and you never finished that first task you started. And that's really the most important task, was getting that first thing done. And so, yeah, I agree along with what Scott said, was just setting aside time and saying, you know, I'm not answering my phone. I'm not answering any emails. I'm not answering texts. You know, right now, you know, A, B, C are the most important things to me. And I'm going to do those first, and then, you know, go from there throughout with the rest of the day, and then respond to those things as necessary. But I just, again, I think that goes along with what we already talked about, saying no.
Yeah.
You know, I guess I'm sort of a people pleaser, and I want to, you know, do everything I can for everybody. And really, I just need to say no. And, you know, they can wait the hour or, you know, 2 hours it takes me to get back to them while I complete the tasks that are really important. And if I lose out on a deal or, you know, whatever because of it, you know, it's okay. I've got enough business I can survive that.
Yeah. Nanette, what about you?
Repeat the question so I answer it correctly.
Yeah, not a problem. We're talking about the 10 trade-offs worth making. And he was going through the different types of trade-offs: trade affirmation for accomplishment, trade security for significance. Of those 10, which is one that kind of connected with you the most, or that
I read every single one of them. And so when I read number 1, I thought, oh, I really think that's my favorite. And then I read number 2 and I said, no, that was my favorite. And I went all the way down to the bottom and they're all, you know, you're asking me to pick what's my favorite ice cream, man. Dude, right. I like it all. So
tell me about trade security for significance then.
Security.
That was one of the other ones that jumped out for me.
Yeah, that one is awesome. You know, I am so lucky to be in the position where I don't work for a paycheck. I need a paycheck, but I don't work for a paycheck. And so so a real estate transaction for me is much more significant than the dollar, because quite honestly, it's not that much money, to tell you the truth. Okay. So, I mean, people think that real estate agents are just, you make all that much money. Really, not really. But,
right.
So, but the significance that one can make in somebody's life okay, here, and then that paycheck is this much, okay?
Mm-hmm.
When you realize the significance that you're making in that person's life is huge, and that paycheck is just so much smaller than that. And it doesn't matter what that paycheck is. It's the significance is so much bigger.
Yeah.
Because you cannot, because that paycheck's got nothing to do with the value of that person's life and the significance that that change is going to make for them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the value really is. So operating at that level, then of course, you know, you go to number 10 when you realize what your purpose is, you know.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so many times, you know, when I get the little bitty paycheck, I remember unto the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
Unto the Lord. We're going. I mean, and I even do that when I think about cleaning my bathroom. Unto the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, even the little things that I got to get done, I got to remember why. It comes back to my why. For me,
Yeah.
you know, I am not motivated by a paycheck. So it's always about the why and being significant. And you know, I cannot do that. And then it ties into this next thing. You see, I cannot do that by myself.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I have to let go of that ego and put the people in my life that are going to help me be more significant.
Mm-hmm.
And which is what you're supposed to, you know, this is just all ties in together. You can't just talk about one of them.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting because when it talks about success versus significance, I believe that one of the factors that distinguish those two is ego. From a success standpoint, a lot of the focus is on me posting a number, making sure that I'm getting the credit, that I'm getting the exposure, versus a person that focuses on significance. It's very much not about their ego. It's very much about seeing others win and being excited for them to be successful. So I think in a lot of ways, when we look at the 10 trade-offs and one was trade security for significance, it could easily be changed to trade success for significance from the standpoint of, as a leader, we should be focused on developing other leaders and helping them be successful. So the sacrifice of ego, the sacrifice of you getting the credit in certain situations, that in itself is a sacrifice that is worth making. It's a trade-off worth making, because that's where, when we look at lesson 26, the final lesson, that's where legacy begins to be built, is when we're thinking about what can I build to him and what can I build for his creation that can outlast generations in helping individuals reach their highest and fullest potential and be significant. So I think there's a book out there called Ego is the Enemy. That's a really important thing to think about, is making sure that we don't allow ego to creep in and dismantle the things that we're looking to build for whatever particular reason. So one of the questions that it asks actually after the 10 trade-offs is, are you willing to give up to go up? To be an excellent leader, I think you have to learn to travel light. You must learn to offload before trying to reload. And at the bottom, it says, every new level of growth we hope to experience as a leader calls for a new level of change. Every new level of growth we hope to experience as leaders call for a new level of change. And one of the mentors in John Maxwell's organization is a guy by the name of Scott Fay. And he's been known as saying, only wet babies like change. And so it's a challenging thing for us sometimes to look at the things that we need to change to be the best persons that we can possibly be.
Some people like their poopy diapers.
Well, that's something way beyond my pay grade to figure out the reason for that.
The truth.
But you know, it's funny, Nanette, because there's a lot of there's a lot of figurative truth to that. That people are willing to waddle in that stuff, that they're not willing to trade, because as crazy as it sounds, there's a sense of security being waddled in that muck.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And, yeah.
You got to give up the crap.
Yeah, literally, to be able to move forward. And that's a good segue into lesson 23. Those who start the journey with you seldom finish with you. You have to be cognizant of the people that are around you. And if those are individuals that operate that way, then they're going to get you soiled, for lack of a better term, because of the fact that they're bringing to you their programming, their limited beliefs, their failures, all these different things that, whether intentional or unintentional, they're pulling you down in the muck.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Hey, Scott, has there ever been a time where you realized that there was just somebody that they just couldn't take the journey with you? And it was a painful experience. And how did you get through that?
That's actually happened many times. And you just, sometimes it's really hard, especially if they're, if you feel like they're very beneficial in some ways, but not making not going to make the journey with you in all ways. So, a primary example is like you say you have an employee who's generating a lot of money. Yeah, it creates a lot of issues or problems. But sometimes it's kind of hard because you like that money in the long term, but in the short term, but the long term, you're thinking, okay, this person, guy or girl, is going to be a big issue.
Right.
So it can be very painful, but you have to trust your instinct on what's going to be good for the bigger picture, and realize that that person can't stay around. And in some ways, you can actually even look inward at yourself, and there might be like a portion of you that can't stay around. I know that several years ago, my whole team, we went through like 2 months of just a funk. It seemed like everything we touched, everything we did just turned bad. And it was just terrible. Like, every listing appointment, we didn't get the listing, nothing was selling. It just, a lot of things seemed like they were just kind of in the wrong direction. And I just, we just sat down one day and said, okay, that's it. We're done. We have this dark negative cloud over top of us that we're creating. And, we got 1 hour, yellow scream, get it all out of your system, do whatever you got to do. But in 1 hour, everything's different. From here on out, we're getting every deal, we're getting every listing, we're getting every sale. It's going to work. And we're just, change your attitude. You have 1 hour to change your attitude, or, go find another team to work on or something, because it was all of us, and even myself and my partner.
Right.
Just such a dark cloud. And
it's interesting. Go ahead.
I'm just saying it made a huge difference. That day turned everything around, and we started off having a really bad year to all of a sudden we had one of our best years.
Mm-hmm. I've heard it said that energy cannot be created. It can only be transferred or transformed. And something simple as getting in a room and getting it all out, literally purging your system of all the negativity that you have, and being able to turn that around inside of you and within your team is a very important thing, because we have the power to bring negativity as well as positivity. And so different people are going to get to the goal different ways. And I love that that's a great example of just going in a room and some days you just need to push the reset button. I know there's been times where I've been in the middle of the day and I'm just like, what, this day is not going the way that I want it to go. So I'm going to take a break, whether I have time to take the break or not, because I really don't want the rest of the day to go the way that this day has started.
Right.
And the Chinese have this thing that when you get mad, you can be mad for 28 minutes. Okay. And if you get mad beyond the 28 minutes, you got to stop and go on about the day. And you can't get mad again about the same thing for 12 hours. And then after 12 hours, you can get mad again for 28 minutes. Because scientifically, I don't know if this is really true or not, but this is the Chinese medicine. I don't know. But they say if you're upset for longer than 20 minutes, then you actually begin to internalize it. And it starts affecting your organs of your body physically. Wow. And so that's how they control, so that the energy won't bleed. Giving yourself permission to get pissed off and throw things and whatever you got to do for 28 minutes, and then come back and it's done. And you can go back and get mad about it again in 12 hours if you want to, but this is how they prevent, and they live a long time. So and that's how they prevent the stress from bleeding into their health issues.
Yeah. Scott, you were going to follow up on that.
Well, I was going to say after that day, another thing I said from that period on was I said, okay, you have 30 seconds. If something's going wrong or something you get mad about or something you have to say, you come to my office, close the door. You got 30 seconds to say anything you want. Use whatever language you need to use, whatever you got to do. Say what you want. You got 30 seconds. After that 30 seconds, then from that point on, it's find a solution and move forward, and when we're done with it, move past it. No more being mad, no more wallowing in the muck. Just let's find a solution and go from there.
Yeah. Yeah, makes sense.
And I still to this day, that's my thing. If someone gets mad or someone's annoyed, I'm like, okay, you got 30 seconds. Say whatever you want, and let's move on.
TJ, there was a quote on page 215 that jumped out at me. It said, anytime you ignore reality for the sake of the relationship, you will have problems. Did that resonate with you in any way?
Yeah. I mean, if you're ignoring reality for, a relationship that's really not reality, I mean, that relationship's based off of, basically a falsehood or untruth. So, I mean, I think you've got to take the reality of the situation and, apply it to that relationship and, come what may. I mean, if you put on a false front for that person, it's not a true relationship and you're not really being honest with each other.
Yeah. I was thinking about when you said no, you having trouble saying no to other people. Do you sometimes have trouble saying no to yourself in situations?
I'm yes and no. I mean, I feel like for the most part, I'm pretty good about disciplining myself and saying no. We've talked about this, how I do a lot of athletic stuff. I'm training for an Ironman this year. Yep. And so I really have to say no to, sleeping in the morning. I got to get up and I got to go ride or run, before work. And I'm good at saying no to sweets or junk food. So I do have to say no to myself a lot in that aspect. So I feel like for the most part, I'm pretty good about telling myself no. I mean, obviously there's sometimes where I don't, but I feel like I'm more able to tell myself no versus somebody else.
It's interesting. Another perspective that I had of that quote in relationship to no kind of goes over to page 216 when it says not everyone can take the journey with you. Just because people were right for the team in the beginning of the journey doesn't mean they will always have the capacity to take the whole trip. When memories of the early days of working with someone are wonderful, it becomes very difficult to face when those days are gone and will never return. It's like a train that starts out with an underpowered locomotive. Not a problem, but as you add more and more cars to the train and try to climb uphill, sometimes people who have been pulling weight for the team become a weight to be pulled by the leader. And so sometimes when people say no to reality, that in a sense, they are impacting themselves for their growth. Because there are people that sometimes are in denial with regards to what the condition of the relationship is, and that condition is actually the one thing that is actually holding you back. And so I think in a lot of ways, we focus on no in terms of the tangible things versus sometimes understanding, saying, no, I will not change that relationship, or no, I will not let that person go, can be hurtful for not only ourselves, but for other people. And so I think it's really important for us to not only think about the things that we say no to, but also the no's that we say in our lives that actually keep us from progressing towards where it is that we want to be. And so that for me was a way of gaining perspective. Over on page 217. And at the top of that page, it talks about the question is not, are people leaving? The question is, who is leaving? And we've got to be really cognizant of who are the people that we're attracting, who are the people that we're keeping, who are the people that we're losing, and what is that saying about us? Are we growing? Are we moving backwards, digressing? Are we staying stagnant? I mean, because all of those are possible options. It's just really important for us to stay in tune with our world and the people that are around us. So Nanette, when you were reading Gaining Perspective on 217, it talks about in desiring to do the right thing for an individual, I was doing the wrong thing for the organization. So I waited for people I shouldn't have waited for. Has there been a time that you've waited in that situation?
Oh yeah, I want to bring in all these misfits and fix them and bring them all up,
Yeah.
And so, when you are not, when you are the kind of person where you're, this is all about the law of the lid, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when you're like me, you always want to bring people up and carry people with you. I'm, whether I'm going to fixing to get into trouble, I'm carrying somebody with me, or whether I'm fixing to do something really, really great, I'm carrying somebody with me. And so if I am carrying somebody with me, I usually try to carry somebody who I think needs to come with me, maybe somebody who I could help,
Yeah.
And so I'm carrying somebody that may not be as experienced as I am. Come on, let's go. Hoping that they'll catch up with me, because as they move up, then I move up,
Yeah.
I know how this works. I know that I can go and try to find people like you that are inspirational to me and can hang out with you, but I also want to bring somebody else with me to help propel me up too. I mean, it's all about me learning I get you to learn, but I want to learn. So anyway, so I keep dragging this thing along, this ball and chain, literally, and it never works. Come on, and I'm dragging this person, and I can't get where I need to be as a result. Hoping and praying that they'll understand what I'm trying to do, and and I patiently wait. I've got the patience of Job when it comes to waiting for people, to a fault. And my loyalty, I'm loyal. I'm so flippin' loyal that I end up waiting too long. And if I think about the many opportunities that I missed because I was waiting for someone to catch up.
Yeah.
So the thing today is, listen, I'm riding in the front of this roller coaster, the front seat. And if you want to ride with me, we're going to ride in the front seat.
Right.
And we're going to, jump off of buildings and things like that. So that's where we're at. And I'm not waiting.
Yeah. Something you said is really powerful. It talks about opportunity, and sometimes our loyalties and our attachments. One of the mentors, Paul Martinelli, talks about attachments create boundaries, in that there are things that we're so attached to that it's hard for us to give them up. And because of that, it actually impacts our ability to move forward. And I'm looking forward to going through that study with him, because I think he said there's like 72 different attachments that people subconsciously or consciously have that they might or might not realize they're actually keeping them from moving forward where they need to be. And people are one that is just such a challenge, because there are people that we love and there are people that we care for that are in our lives, and yet they might not necessarily be good for us in the next season where we are going. And there's a lot of emotions that go with that. There's a lot of challenges that go with having a conversation with somebody that's good person, bring a lot of good things to the table, and yet they might not be equipped, or it might not be their calling to be able to go along with us. So one of the things that it was talking about in the book is that some people won't go with us just because our calling is not their calling. So they might make a decision that they want to go in a different direction that's more towards what their calling is. And so the whole thing in leadership it's very complicated in a way, because a lot of it is dealing with relationships and really working on who you have to be the best that you can be. And then who do you have to be for other people to want to stay in your life, and whether or not those people need to be there. Mm-hmm. It's a challenging thing. TJ, when you look at the perspective piece, gaining perspective, and it was talking about 4 different aspects of gaining perspective here for mistakes that he had to correct. Was there any one of these that you could relate to in gaining perspective?
Would you mind going over those? I apologize.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've got it on the book, so I don't have the book actually in front of me.
Yeah, no problem. One was, I waited for people I shouldn't have waited for. 2 is, I feel guilty when I lose a key player or when I lost a key player. 3 is, I believed important players on my team couldn't be replaced. And 4, I had to learn to appreciate those who were with me for only a brief time.
I think the third one, where you feel like sometimes you get in there and you're like, oh man, if this person ever left, what would I do? And you feel like you can't ever lose that person. But that's really not true. I mean, there's so many great people out there that, yes, it may be difficult to replace them, but nobody is completely irreplaceable. So if it comes to that point where that person needs to be replaced, then you're better off to just go ahead and do it, and then work on finding the replacement versus trying to continue to limp them along and just hold out for them, even though they're no longer fitting into where you're going.
Yeah. Hey, Scott, what about you? Any of these corrections by John jumped out to you for gaining perspective?
I'd say several of them did. One of the things that I agree with Nanette about waiting for people you shouldn't have waited for, and also believing important players team can't be replaced. I was thinking I'd probably handle something different, which is, I feel guilty when I lose a key player. That if you have somebody who's real important to you, and gone, you kind of feel like you got a huge hole you got to fill.
Yeah.
Times. As long as you're surrounding yourself, sometimes when you lose a key player, it just opens up a space for somebody even better to come into your life and into your business.
Yeah. Yeah, that's big, because one of the other books that's out there is Good to Great, and how sometimes the things that we hold on to good kind of keeps us from experiencing great. And that there are times where there has to be some purging in our lives to be able to make for great to come in. And so I think that's an excellent point of how, because our lives are so full as it is, that for us to receive great and experience great, there has to be room made for great. And unfortunately, that means there has to be some sacrifice and there has to be some purging. TJ, I want to come back to you. I want to read something to you because this really jumped out at me as something that really is going to help me grow in the future. It was at the end of this particular lesson on those who start the journey with you, seldom finish with you. It says, leaders cannot think of themselves as the owners of their teams, even if they happen to be the owner of the organization. Good leaders understand that they are stewards. They must find the best people they can, giving them the opportunity to join in the journey, developing them and encouraging them to reach their potential. That was a paradigm shift for me. I'm almost embarrassed to admit, because I thought a lot about, okay, this team is started by me. It's about me. Sink or swim, it's about me. I've got to be the leader. Everything is centered around what I bring to the table versus helping other people develop and really looking at the people that are in my world that I'm responsible for or have been assigned to me. That is my opportunity to be stewards of their growth and their journey towards where it is that they want to be. So when you hear that and you think about where it is that you were going, what resonates with you?
Yeah, I think the big thing, and we kind of talked about this at the beginning about, our ego and how we kind of get caught up in our own kind of like what you're saying. We focus on ourselves, and we have to lead the team, and it's on us, it's on our shoulders, that we forget that we have to empower the people on our team to become better, and not just to be there to help us, but just in general to become better people, better workers, better, in the community. And anything we can do to help that is going to benefit us as well as those around us.
Right.
So we can't be all just focused on ourselves and growing our team for our own benefits. We need to grow our team for the benefit of them, and help push them to the next level. Assuming they're eagles and not ducks that don't want to go to the next level. But assuming we're hiring people that have the same sort of aspirations as us and want to continue to further themselves, we need to make sure we're doing that with our team, and not solely focusing on our own ambitions and goals.
Yeah. On page 224, it talks about without a lot of people working together, there would be no successful leaders. And it takes a lot of people to create a success. That's why I say that few leaders are successful unless a lot of people want them to be. And that's really important. Without a lot of people working together, there will be no successful leaders. And you have to have people around you that want to succeed. Because there are times, and I see it a lot in sports, where if the team does not want the coach to succeed, they will sit down, they will lay down and create an environment where it is impossible to succeed. So it's more than just being talented and being someone that is a producer, someone that's recognized as someone that brings a lot of numbers to the table. It also has to be someone where the people like them, because if the people don't like them, they don't trust them, then whether it's intentional or unintentional, they are going to work against what the leader is doing, and eventually it's probably going to be their demise. And so over on page 225 and 226, it talks about the help along the way. And then this is one of the things that really connects with you and I, just personally. It talks about there's different types of people. Some have helped me who never knew me. Some who knew me never knew they helped me. And some knew me and knew they helped me. And I really feel like sometimes for me, Nanette, the second one, some who knew me never knew they helped me. And I will never get out of my mind where we met the first time. And for a lot of other individuals that were in that world, I think sometimes we minimize the significance of that gathering of talent that day in Lynchburg and how we still help each other, and to the point where people don't even realize each other, how we're helping each other.
Yeah. There's people that are been in the business of real estate 7 or 8 years. And they're good, seasoned, accomplished agents, but they still don't understand what happened in 2002, 2003, 2004 with the real estate industry.
Mm-hmm.
In 2002 and 3, the only agents that I knew were the agents that were in this vicinity, and that was about 300 or 400, except if I went to a CR class or a GRI class or something else out beyond. That was the only way we networked.
Mm-hmm.
And all of that changed thanks to Al Gore and inventing the internet. And so, no, I'm going to get some emails about that. Okay.
Yep.
So, oh God, please don't email me about that. It
was a joke, folks. Those are just jokes.
Joke. Anyways.
Yeah.
So you just don't understand now. And it's so, I was talking to some agents today, how different that is now. The significance of the internet, even though it's significant, is actually a lot less significant.
Yeah.
Because now our focus is back on relationship. And so it's what is old is new again.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but as we were figuring things out in this industry, like, oh, you wrote a blog too? Oh, and I got to know you through your blog. And before it was really cool. This is back, I'm not, don't mean to be nostalgic, but this was before Facebook. And so,
that's right.
We had, and it was a community called RENet. Mm-hmm. And Real Talk, if you remember Real Talk platform. And it was a forum. It was so generic, and I mean, it was black and white. We didn't have color, and
it truly was black and white TV of social media.
Right, exactly.
Really, yeah.
So I don't want, and I don't want to be nostalgic about any of it, but it really, and these people are the people that I still connect with, that I still send referrals to, that are still significant. And there will be no other. Yeah, I gain more significance with people now, but it's not the same. Okay. Mm-hmm. And you can't replace that, So, I mean, I can name off a bunch of people, and so you just can't change that. Those are the kind of people that you can call at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I know that they'd answer their phone, and vice versa. Yep. So it's pretty cool. It was pretty cool, and these are people all over the country.
Yep.
So it was the beginning of a real estate referral network.
Yep, absolutely. So the only thing that I'll say on that, we'll wrap for today, is the fact that probably shameless plug, one of John Maxwell's books is Everyone Communicates, Few Connect. And I really feel like in those black and white days, we had to be we were challenged more in terms of we had to really be intentional about the words and how we formed the words and how we communicated the words and the tools that we use, versus Facebook and Instagram now is so saturated that sometimes it's created an environment of laziness in relationship to the art of conversation, versus now we have the 45-second sound clip. And what I hope that other generations will do is to take the lead in saying, hey, this is something that there's a place for the shortness, but also there's a place for being present, spending time really understanding the person that's in front of you, understanding the importance of a relationship, understanding that everybody is not necessarily your friend or a follower in the social media world, that leaders are looking for eagles, and to find eagles, you really got to get into the nest and really have conversations with every being in that nest to make sure that everybody that's in there is an eagle and not a duck. And so I really believe that us going through Leadership Gold has really given us some structure in terms of how we should think and how we should organize things in a way to help us lead people and lead ourselves, more importantly, towards where it is that we want to go, which hopefully is significance and not just success. So next week will be our last week. 24 to 26 are the lessons that remain. This has really been an enjoyable process, and I've learned a lot about myself and learned a lot about you all. I really appreciate you all being so consistent and being participants of the Mastermind.
Well, thank you very much. We have enjoyed your generosity of your time and talent, and I support you in this journey as you are going forward. And you've just when I hear other people that have seen this, that have participated in this, I get a lot of good feedback from it.
Good.
Awesome. That this is a valuable hour. And
and I know, Nana and I, for TJ and Scott, Nana and I are still working on an event in September for me to come to the Lynchburg area to do something. We're still working some of the details out. So hopefully by the end of next month, we'll kind of have some things that we can put together and share with you all.
Cool. Are you going to be at the Cultural Summit tomorrow in Fredericksburg, since you're up here in Virginia?
I wish I could do that, but I have another engagement, unfortunately. But I would love to be able to do those things in the future. And I think one of the things that I should do is stay connected with all you all to look for other opportunities to do just that. So thank you for the offer. But I am really on a committed timetable while I'm up in the area. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to see you June 7th.
Yes.
Making a special
I'm excited about that. Absolutely.
That will be pretty cool. I'm excited about that. So anyways, we'll just wrap this up. We are going to meet again next week, same time, same place.
Yep.
All right. Y'all have a great day.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye, guys.
Be well.
Thanks, David.
Yep. Talk to you later. All right. Bye-bye.